So, another one. Greg Kelly. I watched him yesterday. Pretty good guy. Musk is exposing government secrets, going after workers, stealing taxpayer money. Oh, USAID. I bet that's what we're gonna talk about. Sounds good.
And you'll see in a moment is Dwight David Eisenhower, President of the United States, 34th President of the United States, I believe. He was a good president, not great. He had a light schedule, and his advisors were okay people. Imagine if he hung around with Einstein. Seriously, if Einstein parked himself in the White House, Einstein, the genius, we might have gotten to the moon 10 years earlier. How about George W. Bush, huh? W. Now, what
W.
if W teamed up with somebody smarter than Karl Rove? Somebody like Stephen Hawking, right? The guy who figured out the universe. He might have told George W. Bush, do not invade Iraq. That would be a bad idea. I just love what President Trump is doing with Elon Musk. It makes sense.
That was brutal.
He is one of the greatest geniuses of our time. He is not encumbered with the silliness of raising money and going out and getting people to like you and eating corn dogs in Iowa. He has just brought his talent to the table, and President Trump is confident enough and smart enough to realize this is a huge opportunity for him and for the country. What President Trump is doing here, I don't think any other president would do. You know, they actually have fragile egos, and by this point, we should know President Trump does not. What he goes through, what he went through, no. Might be big, but it's not fragile. There's a difference. Anyway, take a look.
No, definitely agree. I liked Trump before Musk, but when he brought Musk on the team, I was like, that's game over. That's we're gonna see a great things. And yeah, Elon was honest about it. He said it, I'm gonna do cleanup. Americans might suffer for a year or something, but we're doing it all for the future. And just seeing what Trump's doing right now, how he signed an executive order that banned male in the female sport, and he just had the support of all the girls. It's that's what he does. He does that for the future. Our generation, we already went through it. 4 years, we experienced it. It's not gonna affect us as much as our kids. And looking at Elon Musk, JD Vance, and President Trump, I feel like they're really thinking about the future generation. Like I mentioned multiple times now, I'm afraid what's gonna be in 4 years. Who's gonna get power? Is it gonna be Democrats? Are they gonna rewind everything back and screw everything up? Hopefully not. Hopefully people will get some common sense, and it's hard to say. I wanted to say that they get a little bit more insight into the problematics and the politics and all of that. But I'm from Czech Republic. We have capital city who votes based on the, don't want to say intelligence, but based on information, right? And then we have all of these little villages that vote based on the billboard, based on the quote on the billboard. We had a prime minister who was, this is gonna sound funny because Trump was obviously charged of some stuff as well, right? But our prime minister was charged of fraud. It wasn't shuffling paperwork. It wasn't one night stand. It was literally stealing money from European Union, stealing money from Czech Republic. And because of all of these villages liked his message on the billboard, they re-elected him, and he got again political immunity, whatever, ridiculous. So yeah, I don't hold high hopes that people will vote based on the information in 4 years, but yeah, let's hope Trump will make everything better and people will want to vote for Republicans again, because if everything he does, if they just rewind it back how it was a month ago, that would be crazy.
It seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So the
media is waiting and begging. They're hoping, praying that there will be some sort of friction between these two, some sort of departure. They're actually, it's almost like there's a mind meld. And President Trump is right. The judiciary is giving him a hard time, but I think that's under control. More on that in a moment. All right.
You know what? I don't know. I feel like Elon is such an interesting person. Like, I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, that he's a little bit on the spectrum. He doesn't look, to me at least, selfish. And he's not a normal person, right? Other than he's crazy intelligent, like, he doesn't seem to think like a normal person. So you can't expect Trump to behave with him or have the same relationship like with, I don't know, let's say, I don't know who was his vice president before. But let's say if Trump was working with Kamala or someone like that. I don't want to say that they think similarly, but they're on the... No, never mind. Hopefully you know where I'm going to. I don't want to offend President Trump, because it's it's weird to say that he's on the same level as Kamala. But it's not like two normal people talking to each other, you know, like I don't think there's going to be any jealousy or something like that. I think Elon is well aware that President Trump is obviously president, and that Trump is aware that Elon is just crazy smart, and he's doing it for, hopefully for the future.
Elon now.
if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country.
You see,
that's crazy.
We've all heard that before, right? From a politician, from somebody who raises money and asks for votes and is always looking at 15 different things in their image and this, that, and the other thing. He doesn't have to worry about any of that. And I get a really good feeling from him and, of course, the president. Next.
Could you?
Yeah, I feel like Elon, like, he doesn't need anything of it. He doesn't aspire to be a politician. He already has crazy amount of money no one else has, right? The richest person. So yeah, I feel like his intentions are a little bit more pure, more transparent, because he doesn't need this shit. He can literally just leave and do whatever he needs to, move wherever he wants to. Like, he doesn't need to be in politics, helping country or anything like that. But again, I don't want to be naive. Maybe there's some side intention or something like that we don't know yet. But just look at his bank account. Like, this guy doesn't need to hang out with politicians.
You mentioned some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right,
etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from.
It's
This seems to be
suspicious.
mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it.
Talking about Samantha Power. She's a big Obama person. She ran USAID.
Oh.
One of these people who doesn't think she needs to wear makeup, and that's fine. But
He's ruthless. But it's fine.
let's talk about her earnings and what she was earning and what she was worth. The salary at USAID to run the place is $183,000.
Wow.
Now she's married to
good
a lawyer
salary.
who does well. And this number, I think going back to 2018, what was she worth back then? Something along the lines of 6.7 million, all right? Now, according to reports, and it's a little bit tricky here because we have not seen the documentation ourselves, but there is a lot of evidence floating around out there that indicates she is now worth, just one presidential term later,
What?
$30 million.
How? Even 6.7 million is crazy for someone who is employed by the government or whatever. Well, okay, I don't want to be silly or naive again, right? But it should feel crazy to the normal citizens that someone, even with that salary, is worth 6.7 million. Like, look, she makes a little bit shy of 200K a year. How is she worth 6.7 million? And if you look now, in 3-4 years, she managed to increase her worth by $22 million with the same salary. Really? Dude, just do the simple math. Something doesn't add up. It's ridiculous.
That's a lot of money.
And it looks like she doesn't even try to hide it. Like, look, when you're taking bribes or shit like this, I never did. Never had the opportunity. Aren't you trying to be sneaky about it? Like, how is it possible that you can find her net worth and it went so high up? Like, how? How did you make it? I'm not saying the government officials or whoever shouldn't have an opportunity to make some extra money, but this is ridiculous. Something stinks there. And yeah, if you want to give them opportunity to make extra money to have their own businesses or something, then pay them less. Done. Obviously, if you have your government job and your own business, that means you're not paying 100% attention to the job you're hired for. So why should you take 180K a year when you're not giving your 100%?
Did you make it?
If you look at, say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code.
That's why Trump likes him, because he thinks about it as a businessman, and that's how Trump wants to lead his country, right? As a businessman. So that's why I think it's gonna work out.
That there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So
What?
the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks.
Does that make sense?
What the hell?
It does to me. And who's writing these checks? Something called
Democrats.
the Bureau of Fiscal Policy, or
Wow.
Bureau of Fiscal Service. It's inside the Treasury Department, and for some reason, suspicious reasons, the swamp doesn't want this thing touched at all.
We've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used.
What the hell?
It's mind-blowing.
Again, it sounds like a treason, like whoever's responsible for that just freaking send them to prison. You're on a do not pay list. What do you think would happen to normal people? What do you think would happen to me if I'm on do not pay list? I would not get paid. Like, what the hell are we talking about?
I know it's not perfect sound bites, but this is poetry for those of us who have been waiting for this kind of cleanup, a genuine one, not just something on a bumper sticker. And yeah, the swamp hates this, big time. Take a look at this. The New York Times, 5 living secretaries of the Treasury all got together and wrote an op-ed. Anytime multiple people do this, it reminds me of that letter about the Hunter Biden laptop. And they all said, how can they do this? How can they bother the people at the Bureau of Fiscal Services? After all, they say, these people are nonpartisan career civil servants, and it's being upended by political actors from the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. They have contempt for politics, but politics is of or related to elections, and that's where we come in.
Man.
That's a good thing. Career civil servants, these political actors have not been subjected to the same rigorous ethics rules as the civil servants. They're experts in flouting those rules, right? Remember the $30 million lady? All right, next.
That's brutal.
When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything just, they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints.
One sec. Yeah, okay. Sorry for that. Yeah, that's obviously you're not gonna complain if you get money, but if you don't, all the currents are there, sending email first day in the morning, obviously. But yeah, it's crazy to see that the US is actually exposing their corruption, and I hope it's gonna lead to more people electing the politicians who will do the cleanups like this, because yeah, I know we're talking about the US, but every country's same, man. I used to work as a flight attendant. I visited about 52 countries, spoke to a lot of different crew, Italians, French, not just Europeans, but one thing everyone has in common, complaining about political situation in the country and the corruption. You would think that it's worse somewhere, but my personal opinion is that it's not worse, it's just more known. Like the countries like Ukraine back in the day, right? Corrupted like crazy. It was known about it. But if you compare it, for example, to my own country, we were corrupted as hell too. But it wasn't that known. Like, we had few scandals. Yeah, I think they just used some politicians as a scapegoat, just to blame them and make it look like that the government is doing something about it. But no, everyone's corrupted. And it's crazy to see that Americans are actually doing something about it.
But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay.
No, he's right about it. Like, to me, that's full-on treason. Like, I know it sounds like I just learned a new word because I'm using it so often. But, like, look, if you're paying taxes and they're not used to improve the quality of your life, or quality of the country itself, or they're not used to run the country, but instead of it, you're sending money to Colombia, to Ireland for LGBTQ musical and stuff like this, that's a treason. Like, that's hard-earned money. And again, I live in Canada, but when I look on the paycheck, 30% of my paycheck goes on deductions. So that's a lot of money, dude.
your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it.
Isn't that little kid great, by the way? Hanging out with it's Elon Musk's son.
Yeah, the kid's
this
great.
This is all possible, of course, for President Trump. Most presidents can't do it. Why in a moment? But like George H.W. Bush, when he shows up there, he just can't believe he's president. For the first 2 years, these guys are like, I get a plane, I get all this stuff. It's amazing to be president. And they put on the jacket and they just can't get over it for the first 2 years. And by the time, then it's time to run for re-election, okay? They become the most famous person in the world. Look at Bill Clinton. He loved it. I loved every minute of it. I'd never been this famous in Arkansas. People knew me in Arkansas, but this is crazy. I mean, the presidency overwhelmed him. They just don't have the inclination, the bandwidth, the time, or the ability to tackle what President Trump, especially Obama, by the way. Talk about a guy who didn't like to work.
Yeah, man, like Obama was celebrated. He was loved in Europe, and back in the day I loved him as well, because I didn't know that he's doing shitty job in the US. Like, he was just this nice old dude, right? Hanging out with NBA stars and whatever. But no, man, he just didn't give a fuck about the country itself. And even some of his opinions nowadays, like, oh, you're black, vote for Kamala. Like, seriously, dude? Shouldn't it be a vote for who do you think's going to improve your life?
Just like to look at himself in the mirror and have a swell time and push this country into socialism. That's what he was all about.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Coach K, basketball stars. Didn't I just freaking say it?
Trump, on the other hand, is a different animal, all right? So the trappings of the presidency, like the helicopter, the plane, fame, he had that stuff when he was 35 years old. He's accustomed to it. It's no big deal. He is the rare politician who wants to just do something, not be something, because he's already something. What politician out there, take that full, would allow themselves to be seen like this? Exhausted, coming home. Remember, the rally was poorly attended, whatever. But we've all come home like this, right? After a hard day of work trying to make it happen. We all know that feeling. I remember they tried to pretend that this was some sort of a disaster. No, it was magnificent. All right, back to that special meeting in the Oval Office.
1 sec, I'm just gonna wake up my dog. Oh, he has some nightmare. Yeah, and that's why I think it's gonna work out with Musk, because he has all of this as well. He definitely has a private jet. He has multiple companies. He's the most, the richest person alive. His ambition is to fly to Mars. Like, it's gonna work out. I don't think there's gonna be any tension between Musk and Trump. I mean, there might, but nothing too serious. I don't think, like, personality trait issue. Maybe just the differences in opinions, how to reach their goals. But yeah, I think that's why that's gonna work, because he's not politician. Neither one of them is politician. They're both businessmen. They're just trying to make America great again.
The most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
You catching all this?
What?
Only 10.
That's crazy, man. Oh, no wonder they're pushing on AI so much.
1,000 people a month can retire from the federal government, which has millions of employees, because they keep the paperwork in a mine and the elevator can only move so much. Well, we looked it up and he's right. And here's the mine.
No way.
As we go
Oh,
further and further,
that's freaking Stargate project. We're gonna see some Stargate behind this. Some SG-1 and Daniel Shanks or whatever his name is.
into the labyrinth, which is the facility, we reach the data center portion. There are more than 6 different challenge points before we hit the data center. These challenge points and these extra gates help with security and compliance. The 30-foot thick limestone.
The challenge points. You see how slowly
Whoa.
that thing moved? I can see the
Yeah,
elevator
right?
moving just as slowly. What is our stuff
Freaking
doing down
golf
there? Anyway?
carts.
All right, next.
At a high level, you say, well, what are the 2 ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion? And it's really 2 things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half.
Think about that, huh? Competent.
He's right. Like, yeah. You're hiring so many incompetent people just for the well, you don't have to go far. Some of them were just for the sake of DEI, right? Instead of hiring 3 people for the DEI reasons, you can just hire the best out of the people who show up for interview. It doesn't matter if he falls into the category of DEI or no. We just hire the best out of best, and here you go. And yeah, now with AI, just try to include that, because AI is gonna improve the performance. There's no question about it, right? Like I gave an example of my work. I'm doing some between 8 to 16 reports during my shift. And that's only like 10% of my work, but it's one of the most stressful 10% because it's one of the most important and it needs to be done. It's a stupid report AI would be able to do like this. You're almost able to do it in Excel, just have a spreadsheet with correct equations and it's going to be able to do it. But no, we have old systems. I have to do it all by myself using my brain, and it's not like I can sit, do a report and then continue doing my own work, right? No, it's like, oh, I have 1 minute here, let's move with my report. Oh shoot, now I need to do this task, this task, this task. Like if I have 5 minutes, I'm able to do a report like no issue. But now imagine I have AI helping me. Damn, I would even have a time to take my lunch break, which I don't right now. So yeah, I bet Musk will include it, includes AI as soon as possible, and here we go. We're gonna lower the spendings. Yesterday JD said that AI will actually create the jobs. I kind of don't believe that, but in the end it's all up to government, and JD actually mentioned it, that they need to be careful. My words, not his. I'm just summarizing it. They need to be careful how they deal with how companies are using AI, and the government needs to protect the workers, right? Because obviously companies gonna try to cut people, not to hire as many. So let's say instead of department of 10 people, with AI you're gonna have department of 3 people working with AI. It's more efficient, it's gonna be better performance for sure, but you need to make sure that those people who get fired are not going to end up on the street, right? Either UBI or just somehow being protected by government. And JD Vance mentioned it, which made me very happy.
Confidence and caring. What an interesting way to put it. And I believe him, and I trust him. I trust President Trump. And what is some nameless judge or faceless judge going to say about this? Possibly everything. Keep in mind, President Trump, we all know this, but in 2016, how many votes did he get? 63 million votes, all right? Let's add that to 2020. What's the total then? 137 million. You add in 2024. We're up to how many votes? 214 million votes. And somehow this guy, this Judge Nobody from Massachusetts, thinks he can turn off the DOGE program. Just turn it off. Because, well, they steered the case to me. There's a lot of judge shopping going on. There are certain districts, certain judges that lean liberal. They know how to get these cases in front of the...
That's another thing where you can use AI. Obviously, judges are smart. They should know the laws from the bottom to top, right? But then there's that personal opinion that's not always good, because like he said, some of them might be leaning a little bit to the left, some of them a little bit more to the right. Is that good in the case like this? No. I feel like in the case like this, there should not be any emotions, and the AI would be best for that. In the civil case, sure, because not everything's only about the data, right? But in the case of running government, just follow the laws. Is it illegal? Okay, shut it down. Is it legal? There we go. Let them go. Don't put your own opinion in there. I'm sorry, but it should not be emotional.
These judges. Here's another one. They're trying to say President Trump has no right to, and put the two together. Yeah, this guy. Yeah, President Trump has no right to redesign the websites and take out all of the transgender stuff at Health and Human Services. Give me a break.
He does. He does, though, because it's discrimination, pretty much. It's kind of like you have reverse racism. It kind of turned into reverse discrimination. And it's ridiculous that when you're applying for the job, they ask you, obviously, I'm not against asking what gender are you, but then you have like, are you a visible minority? All of these bullshit questions. Are you part of LGBTQ? What does it matter for my job? And for me, it's even more ridiculous. Like, I'm not visible minority, but if you hear me, you hear my accent, you know I'm immigrant. But somehow I'm not on the same level like immigrant who's from, let's say, Asia. How? Shouldn't we all be on the same level? I'm not saying I want any benefits or special treatment, but it's ridiculous. Like, obviously you can hear I'm not from Canada or US. And they're saying he doesn't have right to shut this shit down. Like, this stuff on its own should be illegal. Or it's literally on the border. Because I mentioned it before. I worked in Amazon fulfillment center during COVID, right? And they have all of these affinity groups. Sorry, that's my son screaming in the back. But they have all of these affinity groups, which sounds like a decent idea, right? Let's make these support groups just so people from different, again, identity groups, I guess, don't feel neglected. They had an identity group, affinity group for everything but heterosexual, Caucasian, male. What does it mean? That they're discriminating heterosexual Caucasian males. So they twisted everything around just to discriminate someone. And come on, Amazon's a big company. Don't tell me that they were not aware that they skipped this one group. They pretty much just created reverse discrimination for no reason. And you're telling me that what Trump's doing is illegal? Tell that to the normal people, man.
president can't redesign a website, and a judge is saying that. A judge is saying that trans and kids go together. Well, they don't.
What?
All right.
What? Are you serious? Kids should not even know what transgender means. I'm sorry, but how long does it take until you have a sexual education in school? Like, definitely takes longer. What is it, like 13 years old? Maybe 10? And look, this kid is like 6. Maybe even less. Maybe it's even freaking kindergarten. How is that okay?
Right. And what President Trump is doing is not what they say it is. And what do they say it is all the time?
And how does he
We
know?
are already facing what
here
is
we go.
rightfully being described as a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, listen, I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced.
What are you talking about? Constitutional crisis? It's no one other than Democrats just complaining. Just making up stories, making up bullshit. Like, do you see anyone actually protesting on the street, like normal people? And I mean like people who are not in politics or famous like this. Like, yeah, you have some messed up celebrities like Selena crying. Don't get me started on that, but like, you don't have any protests. People are actually pretty happy, I would say.
Certainly since Watergate.
We've got our toes right on the edge of a constitutional crisis here.
Oh my God.
They love saying that. It just seems so important. They can't really even define what it is. And this is not a constitutional crisis. The Constitution is there. Everything's in place. Everything's fine.
Yeah, ridiculous.